Welcome back to the Grand Solar Minimum. Today is Monday, October 22nd, 2018. Hope everybody had a great Monday. Solar wind speeds are sitting at a low 327.8 kilometers per second with a density of 7.1. Check out our sun. It's blank. Again, that'll make 4 days in a row now. 170 days for 2018 without sunspots. We are soaring past last year's number, and we will definitely have a good chance at doubling up those numbers by the end of the year. Our KP indices is also low at 1, and our 24-hour max was a 2. And this is the current situation right now on our SDO. We have coronal hole that could have solar wind flowing through this and reaching Earth by October 24th. 2018. Let's take a look at it in motion, please. Here we go. And while we're waiting, as we look at the sun right now, we don't see any signs of any kind of disturbances or coronal holes at the time forming. I thought maybe in the farthest eastern limb, I guess none of them are going to work tonight, Mari, but in the furthest eastern limb of the sun, I thought maybe we saw some indications that there might be a coronal hole near the equatorial position. However, we're not seeing anything, nor are we seeing any new activity that would recommend a sunspot region, unless we just happen to have one that just pops up out of nowhere. But right now, the chances are good to see at least 10 to 15 days without sunspots. Take a look at our TSI reading for October 15th, 2018. It came in as a 1360.7347. Not much of a change at all. And here we go to get to some headlines. And first I want to give a shout out to Dio, who left this comment actually last night in our comment section after the show. It's natural disaster has been declared in Trinidad and Tobago after widespread floods. And Dio had left a comment in our video yesterday making the comment that we've never seen this kind of flooding before. It's crazy here, but it reads here: an active intertropical convergence zone produced prolonged periods of thunderstorms activity over Trinidad and Tobago over the past 7 days, leading to widespread severe flash flooding and thousands of people stranded. An orange alert is in effect until October 23rd for the entire area. Red alert is also in effect for the ravine flooding until Friday, October 26th, with a possible further flash flooding as well. The Prime Minister has declared a national disaster and authorities are responding to the event. The country is currently in its rainy season, so that starts in June and ends in December. Rain started on the 15th of October and intensified on the 17th, leaving 3.45 inches in Perio, or how about Piacro? Wow. Anyway, I gave it my best. 5.16 inches in Crown Point over a period of 24 hours. 7 days to October 22nd, Parco, let's go with that. Parco received 10 inches of rain and reached a monthly total of 11.6 during the same period that Crown Point received 6.7 inches of rain. Now, monthly cumulative is up to 8.5 inches. On the average, Piarco receives around 73.6 inches of rainfall a year and about 6.1 inches per month. As of October 22nd, floods are affecting an estimated 80% of the territory. 6,000 people are directly affected and 13 shelters have been opened. The Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force has been deployed to the affected communities to support the distribution of relief supplies and aid and rescue operations. Relief supplies of bottled water, family food hampers, hygiene kits, and blankets are being distributed to the affected municipalities. Again, another massive flooding event. These folks seeing monthly totals in just hours. So, although this is the rainy season for for this region. Still quite a bit of rain to fall at one point in time. And, you know, these pictures are, it doesn't matter if it's in Texas or here in Trinidad. This is worldwide. I've got more tonight, too. We didn't have a lot of headlines in last night's video. I read a couple articles, kind of rehashing some of the basic facts about solar minimums. Tonight, lots of flooding. Major hail. That's the biggest part of our headlines tonight. Hail and flooding. And also, Brian Whalen dropped us a line last night as well, talking about the violent storm that they had over there. It dropped huge hail. And, I'm sorry, this is a different story. Brian was Australia. But, guys, this is the same thing that Australia saw as well. Big storm producing heavy rain, lots of flooding. This storm brought intense up to tennis ball size hail in Rome, Italy on the 21st. Now, the storm in Australia did not have tennis ball size, but it did get golf ball size hail. The city was brought to a standstill, forcing some of the drivers in the city's eastern part to abandon their cars and hide from the storm as massive chunks of ice started falling from the sky. Kind of sounds something out of a movie. The 4th century basilica of San Sebastiano was flooded up to 1.6 feet of water. Similar events took place in Florence and Pisa, northern Italy, as well as Sicily, were also affected by the storm. The Italian Civil Protection Department has issued an orange warning for bad weather in 4 regions of the country. It says here, quoted, moderately critical warnings for storm risk in the Basilicata and Mosili and hydrological risk in Campania and Puglia. A yellow alert is in place for the storm flooding in these areas as well as Abruzzo, Calabria, Lazio, Molise, Puglia, and Sicily. And so just more footage of incredible accumulations of hail and more flooding. And really, guys, this is a very, 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 very common headline for, look at this. This is just a hail. Obviously, the amount that fell is melting, creating this river-like effect. It looks like it's going down escalator at a trainway station of some sort. But just tons of flooding. Look at this. It's like they're out in the middle of the ocean until you see that car drive by and then you realize. Lots of lightning right there. And again, the hail accumulated. And of course, with the temperatures where they're at, it melted quickly, causing the flash flooding. But like I said, northern Italy, this is not a strange scene for this part of the country. It's been like this off and on all year long. So many reports of hail accumulations like this from all over Italy. Wow, that lightning's pretty intense. And we know what causes that intense lightning. Increased highly charged particles. These folks are trapped. Enormous hail accumulations. You're darn right. That's ankle high, if not higher. And of course, you can understand why this melted and flash flood. This is probably the calm before everything kind of got wacky. Taking a look at the storm that I was thanking Brian Whalen for alerting us to, but severe thunderstorm, large hail, and heavy rainfall hit southeastern Australia. Again, we're going to see similar pictures. Intense thunderstorms are affecting parts of southeastern Australia over the past couple of days. In just 24 hours, New South Wales registered 300,000 lightning strikes. 300,000. And we just saw where Italy, very frequent, very heavy lightning. Now we're seeing it in Australia as well. And 300,000 lightning strikes, folks. A lot of cosmic rays, a lot of highly charged particles in our atmosphere. We all know that when we see that purple color in the sky, that is a huge indicator of highly charged particles that have inundated our atmosphere. But it says here, a strong cold front moved through New South Wales late October 20th into 21st, 2018, forcing a warm and humid air mass upward, creating a line of storms at times that stretched from Victorian border all the way to southern Queensland. Mari showed me this when Brian had actually alerted this to us last night. Mari did a little digging, pulled up some radars, and this thing was massive. Now, we're not going to be talking about the 4 inches that we saw in Tobago, but still, this is quite a bit of rain in a short period of time. Hornsby picked up the highest amounts with 1.1 inches of rain, and this was all within just a few hours. The highest recorded wind gust was in Sydney, 45 miles per hour. The temperature dropped 9 degrees Fahrenheit in just 11 minutes. Not quite like super impressive temperature shift, but still impressive nonetheless. But the lightning bolts were the most impressive thing of this storm, along with golf ball sized hail. Look at that. Wow. Goodness. Several footage of lightning and very large amounts of it. One person did die from a lightning strike as well. There's another gorgeous but yet scary picture here. I mean, look at this lightning bolt here, folks. Goodness. Now, I can only imagine that these pictures have been, let's say, doctored up to make them look the clouds more sharp and the effects are kind of jumping out at us. But I don't think the events are fake. But we can definitely see the various cloud decks. And here is lightning striking a bridge. Wow. Sydney. 300,000 lightning strikes and only one person was killed. Some parts of southwestern Australia and eastern New South Wales and northern Queensland have already received up to 3 times their average October rainfall. That is not the first time I've read that this month. Again, this is becoming frequent. Cosmic rays create more particles in our atmosphere. All right. More particles we have, more raindrops, more rain bombs we get, more just sudden impacts of large chunks of ice falling from the sky. Cosmic ray influx. It's happening all over the world. It's not just in regions anymore. 2016, it was regional. Last year, it was still kind of regional, but picking up some steam. This year, it's worldwide. Hands down. I will leave the link in the description for that as well. And once again, historic rain accumulations across Malaga result in severe flash floods in Spain. Authorities are expected to declare a disaster area for parts of Malaga, including Costa del Sol Resort and the Estepona, after devastating flash floods swept through the region over the past couple of days. Here we go, another rain event that's lasting for more than one day. Military emergency response unit was mobilized on the 21st. They used helicopters to rescue about 2,000 residents trapped at the holiday resort after devastating flash floods swept through Malaga. One person was killed, a 47-year-old fireman, after the fire engine he was driving overturned and ended up into a swollen river. 2 of his colleagues managed to escape, but the driver was swept away by strong currents. Of course, schools are closed today, obviously. Some areas receive more than half the rain they normally get in a year in just a few hours. So, once again, another headline that is repeating itself in different parts of the world. Australia, Qatar yesterday, Spain, northern Italy. And, while we're talking about it, we're still dealing with rainfall in parts of Texas that do not need any more. Absolutely. And it's been raining like this in parts of Texas nonstop for the last 7 days. We've had various floods here in the United States. It's just becoming overwhelming to me. And I'm not. There's nothing to fear about it. It's just overwhelming, trying to keep track of the different floods in different parts of the world. It used to be easier than this because it wasn't widespread like this. Now it's becoming more common, the flooding. And that, like I said, has everything to do with cosmic ray influx, creating more possibilities for raindrops to fall. More particles, highly charged particles, that is, brings us these super bombs that drop 8.5 inches in just 4 hours. 8.5 inches in 4 hours, folks. I think the heaviest rain I ever witnessed was 1.15 inches. And that was I think it was back in Ohio. I don't remember the exact city, but that was impressive. But that was an all-day thing. All day. And to see somebody that picked up 8.5 inches of rain in just 4 hours. 10 inches in 6 hours. Jeez. That's insane. I'll leave the link in the description. It's a repeating picture, though. People being rescued from rooftops, flooded out areas. So many people right now in need. And I just hope that these governments around the world act fast, including here in the United States. I'm not so sure some of this farm bill stuff is going to be enough to help cover our losses. After going over all the crop loss that we're experiencing in Georgia especially, I mean, my tally says somewhere around $3 billion. Billions of dollars have been lost already in crop loss throughout the world, and we just added a big chunk of that. And in one day, and that storm was super fast. I mean, it was in and out within 24 hours in the Georgia area. And to wreak as much damage and havoc as it did, I think that was the impressive part. But we knew that. We knew this was going to be a quick storm, but powerful. And part of the reason why it got so strong is because, well, part of it was, in my opinion, the storm was already accelerating at a higher speed than a usual hurricane to make landfall like that. A lot of times we've seen storms slow down as it gets closer to landfall into the single digits, but this one didn't. It actually sped up once it got on land, accelerated through the Carolinas and out back into the Atlantic Ocean again. And usually when you have storms that do that, you have a lot stronger winds that will accommodate that. Now, a lot of folks in the mainstream are trying to say that we dealt with, here's man-made global warming the cause for this Cat 5, near Cat 5 hurricane making landfall. And guys, I really believe there's some kind of correlation with solar wind and intensification of low pressure systems on Earth. So it's worth looking into more. I mentioned this in a couple of shows that I'd actually like to do more research on how solar winds do affect our planet during certain weather events, storms, hurricanes, nor'easters, a severe weather outbreak. Does solar wind have enough effect to intensify things here on Earth? And, we talk about atmospheric compression. Also, that's being mentioned more probably since 2016 that I've ever heard in my life. So I say yes. I say there probably is a correlation between solar wind speeds and some of these storms that we've seen in the past. We were going through a couple of storms during Michael, G1s. I don't think we got to a G2. If it did, it was very brief. But however, at least 3 times we saw our solar wind speeds accelerate past 550 kilometers per second. So worth looking into. We'll leave the links in the description. Again, I highlighted 4 stories tonight. And in all 4 areas, Australia, and actually I didn't get to that. I'll give a little here just shortly. Northern Italy with the hail. And of course, the Trinidad and Tobago flooding. We've had 3 to 4 major flooding events happen in different parts of the world. And then we didn't even talk about this, but I kind of, for any of you out there who follow me on Facebook, I'm not really one to make predictions of anything. I don't like it. I don't think I've done this long enough, but I kind of tested one out. Just with the KP indices being so low lately, last 3 or 4 days, we've averaged probably around 1.5 kp if we had to take an average, but it's mainly stayed at a low 1, and we had more than 24 hours of 0 kp, so I threw it out there, and I made the comment that we would be experiencing a 7.0 earthquake or higher, and the result, it's a quake watch in the next few days. And I also stated that it would be somewhere in the Ring of Fire. I know that's really vague and nothing precise, but nonetheless, it was my first attempt at trying to connect the dots from solar activity to what happens here on Earth. And I think that with the variables that I have observed and also the people that I have that help me understand this stuff, I was able to recognize certain conditions, knowing what these things do with low KP, low solar wind, whatnot. And voila, we had 3 earthquakes near Port Hardy in Canada. Now, it was not a 7.0, but we had a 6.6, a 6.8, and a 6.5. We had some smaller tremors afterwards, 4.3, 4.9, 4.5, but we didn't get quite the big 7.0, but I feel like the 6.8, for me, that's pretty good. I was impressed I actually got that close. And the only good news about these predicted earthquakes, that thankfully they were offshore. Nobody felt anything. There's no expectation of any damage or any death or anything like this from this earthquake. There was no tsunami, but it was shallow. It wasn't a very deep earthquake. And again, it did happen on the Ring of Fire, just on the North American side of it. And really, lately, all the action, especially volcanic action, is a region that we should all watch, is Central America. And that comes straight from a GSM source that I really trust. And I believe him. He shows me the evidence, and there are a lot of volcanoes going off in that region. So still something to watch. KP indices are still low. As I showed you guys at the beginning of this broadcast, still sitting at a 1 with a 24-hour max of 2. So not really much happening as far as the sun being quiet. And speaking of that, here's a little write-up. And what's up with that? It says, weak sun and El Nino events may create a colder and snowier than normal winter season in much of the eastern half of the U.S. Now, this is something that we've been hearing a lot about. The eastern U.S., the eastern U.S., the northeast, the eastern U.S. And this also is just another piece of the snowier winter that we're going to experience this year here in the eastern U.S., northeastern part of the country. And that also has to deal with the Arctic temperatures that were below normal in the summertime. So we were cool in the summer, and right now we're above average temperature heading into winter. And as we said before, that leads to more water vapor and also more snow for the northern hemisphere and, specifically here in the northeast. But here's another article talking about solar minimum and its potential impact on this upcoming winter. Now, NOAA just put out a forecast that here in upstate New York and the whole northeastern, that we had a really 40 to 50% chance of having above average temperatures for our winter here in the northeast and most of the Midwest as well. Surprisingly, the south and the southeast were going to be the areas that were just going to stay neutral for this winter, but the rest of the United States, guys, northwest, northern plains, southwest, all of us were going to be above average for the entire summer or the entire winter because of El Nino. But here's where we start to get down to the brass tacks. In long term, the sun is the main driver of all weather and climate and multi-decadal trends in solar activity. This can have major impacts on oceanic and atmospheric temperatures. In addition, empirical observations have shown that the sun can have important ramifications on weather and climate on a shorter timescales, including those associated with the average solar cycle of around 11 years. The discussion comes as weather conditions and snowpack during the fall and winter seasons in cold air source regions such as Greenland and northeastern Canada can, in turn, have an impact on the conditions experienced in the eastern U.S. And I'm going to stop there. Show you this real quick. And this is what the amount of snowfall that we're going to have in the eastern part of Canada over the next several days into October 31st. Now, some of this will melt. It's not going to this is not our snowpack by any means, but what I think they're trying to say is right now it's October and we're looking at anywhere from 6 to as much as 12 inches of snow in some parts of Canada, with a widespread of 1 to 4 inches in this part of Canada as well. Higher elevations are probably expecting a lot more in snow. But if we're getting this kind of snowfall now in October and it continues to build up, well, this part of this article is starting to make sense to me a little bit. These particular regions of North America are where many cold air masses originate, and the fact that Greenland, for example, has been particularly cold since late July is quite a bullish sign for the formation of deep, cold air masses. By the way, the temperature at Summit Station in Greenland on 4 p.m. on Sunday was minus 38 degrees Fahrenheit. Just putting it out there. It's not only important to monitor the potential for the formation of cold air masses in these particular regions, it is also important to determine if there will be a mechanism to bring cold air masses southward from the northern latitudes into mid-latitudes, including the mid-Atlantic region. High latitude blocking is a phrase given to such atmospheric phenomenon that indeed can bring cold air masses into the eastern U.S. from these cold air source regions, and with the block in the atmosphere during these events, cold air can stick around for a while, which is often important prerequisite for accumulating snow in some places, such as the big cities of the I-95 corridor. High latitude blocking during the winter season is characterized by persistent high pressure in the northern latitude, such as Greenland, northeastern Canada, and Iceland. There is evidence that with low solar activity during solar minimum years tend to be well correlated with more frequent high latitude blocking events compared to normal. So, with that being said, this makes total sense. We saw a few polar vortexes in 2017. We saw a little bit in 16. We saw a really big one in 2014, 2 different periods. But where I'm going with this is 14 we had a couple. 15 I don't remember if we had any at all. I'm sure we had at least 1 or 2. 16 we had maybe 3. 2017 we had at least 3 to 4 polar vortexes that affected the Northeast, if not more. So the frequency of polar vortexes affecting this area are on the rise, and I'm going off the top of my head. I know for at least a fact that at least 2 to 4 times we've seen polar vortexes affect areas of like Ohio, Indiana, Pennsylvania, New York, and all of the Northeast. So with that being said, solar activity continues to dwindle like it has in the ending cycle of 24. So imagine what 2018, 2019, 2020 has in store for us. How many polar air vortexes are we going to see? Are we going to start getting them earlier? Are we going to get them more frequent? And the only reason why I'm mentioning polar vortexes and blocking in Greenland is what we're seeing on the GFS coming up by next weekend. Actually, it's this weekend is what we're talking about. But we're going to see Wilma go across Mexico, stay as a very strong low-pressure system into Texas by Thursday, all right? This thing kind of reorganizes and gets a little stronger and just kind of cruises along the Gulf Coast. By Friday, this storm starts going up the East Coast. Guys, I hate to say it, but this looks like a nor'easter. Watch the rotation here as we go into Sunday. Snow starting to form on the back end of this storm. And the Northeast, one side we're going to have snow and freezing rain, and the side closest to the Atlantic Ocean will have nothing but heavy rain. But this system does rake up the East Coast, and right before, this is new, right here. This system that is actually, classic sign, I just saw this. The Northeast, we have a high pressure system, okay? And this is what happened last year during some of these Greenland blocks. The high Northwest system was shooting down these low pressures, like look up here in Alberta, All right, here comes this low pressure system. It's going down the slide through Missouri into the south. Now, this thing glides out into the ocean. Once this potential nor'easter gets through on the weekend through Monday, there's another storm system, another low pressure system that will bring more snow back to the northeast, like another nor'easter on Tuesday and Wednesday of October, and should see some Halloween flakes. So I want to take a quick look to the region here and show us if we have that high pressure present near Greenland. And it appears before, that article we're reading, northeastern Canada and Iceland and Greenland area. Again, these two storms that are coming through. And guys, there is, the GFS is indicating that we have some high pressure that's kind of hanging out near southern Greenland. And I think that's part of the reason why we are seeing these storms raking the East Coast. It's a very weak setup, nonetheless, but it is a setup. And that first storm that comes through definitely has a signature of a nor'easter. The second storm, low pressure sort of invades, but once again, high pressure dominating in the northern Atlantic. So it's a possibility that this other low pressure rakes up the northeast just like another nor'easter. So it's possible that we might see 2 nor'easter storms in October. After that, we go into into November, and it looks like more of the same, where high pressure and low pressure are tussling it up here in the northern Atlantic, trying to fight for their territory. But some very early indications that we might have some kind of a blocking event possible. I'm not sticking my guns to this, but just by looking at these two storms, we're already hearing, and I've heard the words nor'easter come out of a few different channels' mouths already, and I have to agree with them. The signature's there, the high pressure, especially for the first one, and that one's going to hit this weekend. But again, guys, it's time to get ready. For those of you who live in Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, South Carolina, North Carolina, near the coastal areas, Virginia, D.C., Pennsylvania, you have more heavy rain heading back in areas where you do not need this rain, period. And in fact, it seems like this low pressure system gains strength and kind of just stalls out over the D.C. area near Philly and close to New York City as it moves through on Sunday, finally moving out of that particular region, and a little bit more drier weather behind that. But that storm is still turning up moisture that's coming from the northeast and flowing back out to the Atlantic. So big storm here on Monday and Tuesday, and the possibility of another snow event as well on the northeast. And then after that, we just get real rainy for the first week of November. And it's too far out to really tell, but looking at these GFS models, it looks like that coldest air is going to stay north for the time being. But the common denominator here is that we're seeing the Northwest being responsible for a lot of these low pressure systems coming out. Now the trough is it's not dipping like it normally does, but when you see these isobars here getting closer together, that's a sign of a dropping cold front getting further south. And on this one here on the 1st of November, it does dip and then it rides back up that warm front that will bring everything moisture-wise back through the eastern part of the United States and the northeast. So, lots taking place. And we're not really even talking about this near Cat 5 hurricane Willa, not Wilma, I said Wilma earlier, but Willa may stop migrant caravan as it slams Mexico. What? This one I'm going to have to pump the brakes on. And I'm going to take Joe Bastardi's side on this. Now, here are the stats on Willa. Cat 5. It is catastrophic. Expected to produce life-threatening storm surge, wind, and rainfall over portions of west central and southwestern Mexico. 160-mile-an-hour winds right now. Those are maximum sustained. So absolutely Cat 5. Central pressure is 925 millibars. It's pretty low. Remember, Michael was 919 millibars. But what they're talking about happening, the rain anyway. The coasts, you guys are going to be looking at 6 to 12 inches of rain. Further inland will be 4 to 8 inches, and closer to the center of Mexico, we're talking somewhere around 1 and 3 inches. Joe Bastardi says on Twitter, they just crossed over the border 2 days ago. They will be traveling nowhere near the storm. The storm will be destroyed by 72 hours in the low levels. Upper energy will be pulled into major non-tropical event. More likely, you blame nor'easter in the east for this on the weekend. Now, this is going to be a problem on the coast of Mexico all the way out to Nova Scotia. So, in one sense, I get why Joe wants to depoliticize this event. There's a lot of people posting about this caravan, and here's Watts' response. I was thinking more about Mexico's weak road infrastructure ahead of them, that is, the storm path. You can't cross bridges that are washed out roads that are flooded and torn up, even if Soros is busing them there. But I'm with Joe on this. We don't need any help putting politics into places where they don't belong. It's everywhere now. It's in our sports. It's in our entertainment, our sitcoms, and some of the weather is sometimes, unfortunately, politically driven. Whether it's warming or cooling, some groups have political agendas, and they want to push that with their political agenda. But I gotta agree with Joe here. The bigger story, in my opinion, is this nor'easter, and he said it, nor'easter. And I trust Joe. Joe is very, 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 very good at what he does. So he's one of the first and the only ones that I really trust to talk about nor'easters this early in the year. And I'll do some numbers also to figure out when is the earliest that we've ever received a nor'easter. In fact, Mari, do you think anybody in the chat could give a stab at a guess at what was the earliest nor'easter to hit the northeast United States? Anybody want to take a guess?
What's your question? Repeat it one more time.
I was asking if anybody wanted to guess when was the earliest nor'easter to hit the northeastern U.S.
All right, just give people, there's like a delay with how they hear you and their response in the chat, so.
I'll put it on the sun for a minute. Give everybody a chance to catch up. See if it's working yet.
I don't know. I might as well do my thing.
Yeah, and I don't have the answer either, so I'm just curious to know if anybody has an idea is basically why I was asking.
Well, right now I haven't got, one person said April. I don't know.
No, that's the latest.
No, I don't know.
We want to know the earliest.
Some people are saying, all right, we got November 14th. And
wow.
We got someone saying 1858. It's been an interesting night on YouTube, Jake. A lot of people are getting errors. So I apologize to those getting errors. I was getting errors myself.
For the video?
Trying to load the preview.
Wow.
We're getting, some people are getting the monkey, YouTube monkey. Other people are just getting errors. So if you did get an error, just refresh. I had to refresh 5 times. Rob just popped in. He said early September.
Okay.
So,
And Rob's guess is as good as gold in my book, so I believe that. Someone else said November, though, which I still think it's really rare to talk about maybe 2 nor'easters in October.
We had Per Strandberg pop in earlier.
Awesome.
And he said first outbreak of Arctic cold air is coming his way in western Norway this weekend, -8 degrees Celsius in the night for Monday forecast.
Jeez.
So that is like...
That's brutally cold.
My goodness.
Bundle
up.
Yeah.
Get ready
Thank
for that.
you, Purse, for stopping by.
And I'm sitting here, being a wuss about our weather, how it's going to be next week.
It's cold.
Yeah, but -8 Celsius. Jeez.
Yeah. No thanks. Well, Mari, thank you for reporting for us. Again, I appreciate the participation in the chat. And guys, as far as the errors go, I got to believe that there's some folks and individuals out there that don't like what we do here at the Grand Solar Minimum. I try to be as layman's term as possible. I try to be as plain and simple so people can connect the dots. And even if you don't quite understand what I'm trying to say during my broadcast, I leave links in the description. Here's Mari again.
I also want to say, Jake, right before you brought me into this wonderful discussion we're having, people were really big up in you in the chat. They love you. They think you're humble and factual, and you're just good stuff.
Well, I appreciate
take
that.
a look at the chat when you're done, Jake.
I'll definitely take a look.
People really appreciate you. Go you, Jake.
Much appreciated, guys.
I said I like you too, but I'm biased.
Right,
so
right.
It
You
doesn't
live
really
with me,
mean a
so
whole
that,
lot,
yeah.
you know.
They could
But
care
you
less.
are good. I back you.
Well, and I totally lost my train of thought. What I was saying. What was I saying?
I don't remember.
Good Lord.
Sorry.
But no, we do such a good job, I think, of trying to
It's about
be
being factual.
not trying to sensationalization. Good Lord, I can't talk. We don't try to sensationalize. Sensationalize.
Sensationalize.
I work 10 hours a day, guys. I apologize. My brain's a little fried. But no, we just try to give the facts straight and try to break it down to the basic explanation. And then I leave links in the description so you guys can read it. And maybe sometimes I get a little too excited about what I'm reading, and I don't always phrase things correctly. So that's why we leave the links. And two, we want you guys to read this stuff. We want you to make your own decisions as well. I kind of like to say that I report on this and offer a little bit of side commentary on some of the discussions that I have about these topics. But anyway, enough about us. Thank you once again for tuning in, guys. We appreciate the constant support that we get from you guys. We love you very much. We should be back tomorrow. If not, we will be back on the air Wednesday. Actually, I can go ahead and tell you that we will be on the air Wednesday night at normal time at 9 p.m. Eastern. I don't know if we'll have a show tomorrow. If there's some breaking news, we will definitely try to do our best in reporting it tomorrow. But definitely look forward to seeing you guys on Wednesday. We will talk soon, guys. Take care.